Hi, everybody. Jay Weidner here. Thanks for watching Reality Check. Hit subscribe and like and all that stuff. And thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. Sure everything's together here. Okay, good. So I was on Carrie Cassidy's show, Project Camelot, about a week ago. And she told me that I should wing it alone on some of these shows and impart some of the knowledge that I've gathered over my many years and that's in my head and also locked up in these books that I have. Now, we're going to show you some of those books in a few minutes, at least two of them. One is fairly well known and the other one is not well known at all. Both very important in their own way. Anyway, so, we're moving into the fourth state of the human race. It's happening right now, and it's happening right in front of us. And the first stage was, of course, hunter-gatherer, and then farmer city, and then industry and science, which is the last couple hundred years maybe. And now we're moving into what science and industry has given birth to, which is going to be a whole new different world where you're going to be able to, and I'm talking like in 100 years or 50 years, I'm talking in like 2 years. You're going to be able to grow any organ in your body. They're going to be able to duplicate almost everything that you in your body so that it can be replaced. We're heading into a time of extended life, depopulation, and in breeding together of technology and human culture. So we'll see where it goes, Which is one of the reasons I'm doing this show today, because I'm talking about things that happened in the past on this show today. And the reason I'm talking about it is, for one thing, I want them to be preserved, although I think they won't be, in the tide of time that's coming on us, the wave of time. It's going to change and wash everything away. And so, I think it's even more important now to discuss what esoteric knowledge really is, what alchemy really is, what it meant to the ancient people who practiced it, and also why it's important now. And if it gets swept up in the wave of time, well, at least, I gave it a shot, right? So, so I want to show you guys some books. I don't think I'm going to take much time here today. When I was on with Randall Carlson, I showed the picture of the Sphinx being built on top of a building, and everyone complained because I was, about this big in the frame. So they didn't really get to see it. So I want to make sure I get that one out right away. There's the front piece of Mystery of the Cathedrals by Phil Pinelli. And you can see in the background, there's the Sphinx, and the alchemist standing between the paws, and the Sphinx is on top of a bricked building. The crow, of course, is the prima materia of alchemy. The prima materia of alchemy is black. So the crow represents that, the raven, the crow. And if you know anything about crows and ravens, they're really, really smart. There's a great video on YouTube. I think you just type in crows skiing on rooftop. You'll see this crow has a cap in its beak, and he drops it on a roof in, I think, Russia, snowy roof, and he slides down to the bottom, picks up the cap, flies up to the top, and does it again, does this over and over. He's skiing on the rooftop. It's amazing. So alchemy is, a long lost art, and I'm going to try today to explain it in a simple way by using examples from some of these books that are out there. This is going to be hard because this book here, which you can still buy, by the way, both of these books you can still buy. But this one, of course, is Monster. It's called Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Hall. I'm sure most of you have seen this. If you haven't, you should have. This is an important book. This book has hundreds, thousands of illustrations. Let me show you some of the things that are in this book. Like I say, you don't want to put this book on your chest when you're trying to read it. So there's the alchemist surrounded by the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac, and then the woman coming out of his pineal gland. On the other side, you see the 72 names of God. See if I can get that in there better. That's the 72 names of God. I used to run a resort, a spiritual retreat center, years and years ago, called Zaca Lake, Z-A-C-A Lake in California. And the 48th name of God, according to that chart I just showed you, is Zaca, spelled Z-A-C-A. Let me show you some other cool things and secret teachings of all ages. If you don't have this book, you really should go out of your way to get it. It's just for the illustrations and nothing else. This is too cool. This is other things that are kind of in this book. This is an entire Egyptian ritual taken right off the walls. I say the book is unwieldy. They have a smaller version you can get for a much cheaper price. I don't know what this book costs nowadays. I know it was a pretty hefty price, and I purchased it years ago. But I'll just flip through it. You see, you guys can kind of see how beautiful it is. That's Alanis. This is give you a real idea what this book has in it. Manly Hall, of course, actually died on the way to Zaca Lake, if you believe that or not. There's just so many cool things in this book, I just can't even begin to tell you. So Manly Hall actually died trying to go to Zaca Lake. I wasn't there at the time. It was years before I worked at Zaca Lake, but there's a lot of people that speculate that he was murdered because he had these fantastic collections of alchemy books and tapestries from all over the world, statues. He was a great man. He had an institute on Los Feliz in Los Angeles, and when I was living there, I used to go there all the time. And I eventually made friends with his wife, Maria, and she was a fascinating person too. And I would go down to her house and hang with her, and she would have these like incredibly elaborate diagrams and drawings, and she believed that we came from Mars, and she had all these old books that said it, and it was just really fascinating. She lived to be 100 years old and died about 15 years ago, as I remember. And just an amazing person, really amazing person. Okay, the next book, which is a really important book that nobody knows about, is called Natural Architecture. I talked about this on Jean-Claude's show. I thought that when I was on with Leo Zagami, I thought this was the book he was talking about because he kept talking about the Book of Nature. And I thought maybe, this book, when it got translated into Italian, it was called the Book of Nature. So I thought that's the book we were talking about. but later I found out it was his book is a completely different book. I'll just show you the front piece of this book. So this book was written by a, I'll get to that in a second. I just want to show you the front piece of this book. This book is a lot like Secret Teachings. In fact, in the introduction to this book, Jocelyn Godwin, the great scholar, he talks and says that the only book that this book is comparable to is Secret Teachings. And I'd have to agree. And so this is like the front piece of it. And you notice that the alchemist has a model of a Gothic cathedral in his hands. This front piece is very telling. I could go on for about an hour on that. But I point that out because I have pointed out on this show many times that they would have had to build a model first to build a Gothic cathedral because this architecture is so complex. Yet we can't find any models. Very frustrating. And I can't understand that. Where are the models? Why wouldn't they be in the church or in the cathedral? I mean, so this book is a lot like Manly Hall's, although it's a lot easier to wield. So he has, you see that? Yeah, he has diagrams and pictures, and he uses mathematics and algebra to reveal how all the traditions on Earth are essentially the same thing. They're all telling you the same thing. Now, the author, Peter Chalmeranis, I can't remember he's a pseudonym. We now know that the author of this book was a doctor named Dr. Royer. And he was a pharmacologist. Interestingly enough, he was super into psychedelics, hallucinogens, and he even wrote a book on peyote. And he says he roamed the earth. Apparently he did. And in the effort to try to unite all the traditions of the world. This book is just chock full of drawings and stuff. I'll show you at the end. He actually, let me do this right. Like he shows you the etheric lines on the floors of Gothic cathedrals, how Gothic cathedrals are not churches at all. They're alchemical vehicles that cause a certain effect on the people that are in there. Here's the etheric lines that are on the floors of the Gothic cathedrals, worked into the floors by the makers of them. More how the cathedrals are built, what their uses are, and not just cathedrals, but pagodas and a lot of things in the East too. He's not just strictly Western tradition. He's all traditions. He went all over the earth. He learned to speak Chinese, and he's just, super learned guy. He's definitely an aristocrat. And he has really no use for the 20th century or the 19th century. Everything that he talks about is 1790 and before, usually way before. And what the whole point of it is, and he was also influenced heavily by the French philosopher René Guénon, who wrote a whole bunch of really good books, really anti-modern books, decrying the modern world and telling us about this other world that used to exist before industry and science, and that this world was constructed around sacred geometry, using sacred geometry to build architecture, and that architecture itself was a thing that it wasn't just a place to live in. It was a thing that concentrated etheric forces, or telluric or etheric. They're both the same. This is the hidden, underlying force of nature that science denies, essentially. And it is the ancients knew about it and they concentrated on it. They made buildings that concentrated this energy. So the steeples of the cathedral would draw down the ether, and it would come down to the floor, which had embedded in it sacred geometry, which would spread through the floor. And there would also be a labyrinth right underneath the nave. And the labyrinth was where you walked, and you walked in and you absorbed these etheric forces in your labyrinth. And so they put the labyrinth so you would have to walk over and over and over, round and round, in virtually the same place almost. And that was the place where the etheric forces were coming down at their most. And he also points out that the horror of building with metal, and that the ancients would only use stone and only certain kinds of stone to enhance and build these etheric forces. And so you say, well, what's the point of these etheric forces? Well, they keep you sane. If you know how to I don't want to use the word manipulate. It's not really manipulate. If you know how to concentrate the ether and you can get it inside you, then that enhances your health. The electric body is what is being described in the electric body stuff is this. And so when you're in a house or a cathedral or anything where that ether has been taken into the design of it, you're going to be in a much happier, more pleasant place. And I would say that, even mental illness could be partially caused by the metal and glass square architecture of our modern world. And, all the other things that go with it, forced air, heating and air conditioning, and, all the microorganisms that are growing in the vents that are getting pushed out into you, while you're in those buildings. And so, what we want to do is, live in a place that if it hasn't been designed to draw down these forces, then you need to start finding new ways to do that. Like I have these all over my house. These are beautiful. Michelle Hood at Light the Light Pyramid makes these. They're just beautiful. You got all the copper on the bottom, you see. And so you have to kind of create that kind of thing in your house, where if you got a squared off house and it's built out of mostly metal and things like that, then you have to find different ways to reduce the negative forces and enhance the positive forces. It's orgone and then de-orgone, as Wilhelm Reich would say. And the de-orgone was the bad orgone, the deadly orgone, and it will kill you. And so you got to make sure that you're always in this kind of state of transmutation. But not the entire point of alchemy is the concentration of etheric forces, but it's a major part of it, and so. Oh, I just want to say one thing. It's so interesting that the guy who wrote this book, he also wrote a book on peyote in 1927. So he was a psychedelic guy going out into the world. And I think that is kind of what enhanced and helped him see how all these traditions are the same. Because when you're in a psychedelic state, you kind of do have that oneness feeling come over you, that you're just one little facet of a whole organism, and you have that realization. So I think that we were fortunate to have that guy do psychedelics before he went out to see all this stuff in the world. Also, you can get that book at Sacred Science Institute, and I think it's in California. And I do believe they're still around, because I just got an email from them today. So that book's about 300 bucks, or it was when I bought it, 2005, or no, 2008. So anyway, that's kind of all I have to say. What we're doing is you're building up, your chi, and that is consuming ether. So the practices of Taoism in China were done because every time that they would practice physical alchemy, they would get killed by the emperors. So finally, the Taoists said, "Well, we're not going to do that laboratory stuff anymore. We'll find exercises that can do the same thing." And that's how Taoist exercises were invented. They're designed to enhance the chi, to take the ether out of the air, and draw it into you. And I highly recommend that you do that and you practice that. And so that's what alchemy is to a little extent. I'm not going to go too much more into it. It is possible to create I guess you could call it a device that does nothing but take ether and concentrate it into itself, and then allows you to chip off a little bit of it and consume it carefully, because it's very powerful. And our science has just completely forgot about all of this stuff, and they sneer at it, and done everything they can to destroy anyone looking into it. So I have to hide under the veneer of alchemy, but there are, scientific research that is coming out and being done right now, which actually proves that what I'm telling you is right. And I can do like little things, like the alchemist said that there's 4 states of matter. He said there's a solid state, that would be earth. They said that there's a gas state, that would be air. They said that there's a liquid state, that would be water. And they said there's a fire state, and that would be plasma. And that is exactly what physics says. The 4 states of matter are solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Plasma being 99.99% of everything, and then all the rest make up that little tiny bit left. Most of the universe is plasma, which is ionic fields, floating electrons, and they are everywhere. The stars are connected through Birkeland currents, which are filaments in outer space that are filled with plasma and electricity. Your body is filled with plasma and electricity. The secret to alchemy is understanding this and understanding how you can do practices and things every day to bring as much of the etheric force that science says doesn't exist into your life and into your existence, into your body. And so you have to kind of change the way that you think. You have to realize that science is useful, but intuition and science are even better. And I've heard alchemy described as shamanic science, and I would say that's right. Again, this guy here, Dr. Royer, he combined shamanism with ancient symbols and cultures and philosophies, and he found that they were all basically saying the same thing. There was once a worldwide science that taught the etheric science and taught how you can tap off the etheric energy and how you can use it to reshape your life and your culture and grow food in it in a better way. And it's all been forgotten. When the catastrophe hit, whenever it hit, 13,000 years ago, or maybe it was sooner, who knows? So these are the reasons why I don't think that we're living in a simulation. I'll entertain the idea that we're living in a simulation, but there's too many things in the past that were extremely intricate, very difficult for the modern mind to understand, like alchemy. And that science was created over thousands and thousands of years. and passed down intact from elder to, you know, younger. And for that reason, and because I understand how powerful understanding alchemy is to changing the way that you look at the world, I just don't think that the simulation and the guy who would be programming the simulation would ever go and program something as complicated as alchemy. You'd have to really look in to these books, not just these books, like I said, but all these other books that exist, and try to understand what they're really saying. And you'll realize that the people in the past had a completely different way of looking at reality than we do. And it was born from thousands of years of culture. Okay, that's all I have to say. I will be talking about alchemy more in the future, and I'll leave the phone number and the website for Sacred Science Institute. I'll attach it down on the bottom when I put this up. And I want to thank you all for watching me ramble on and on. It's all Carrie Cassidy's fault. No, just kidding. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Just hit subscribe and all that. And I will see you later.